In the pursuit of truth, clarity is essential. We have stripped away the narrative to show you unfiltered, unedited reality. Witness raw, compelling footage from the front lines of justice, allowing the actual events to speak entirely for themselves.
Step away from the vehicle. ID now.
Officer, I'm Lieutenant Colonel James Carter, United States Air Force.
I don't care. Hands on the car now.
This is unlawful. I'm in uniform and have committed no crime.
Hands on the vehicle now or arrested.
Apply under protest. This is an unlawful arrest.
Officer Dalton Reed thought he was responding to a legitimate suspicious person call. Anonymous tip, vague description, possible threat at a rural gas station. In his mind, demanding identification was routine, compliance was expected. He had stopped dozens of people based on nothing more than anonymous complaints, never questioned, never challenged by his department. But when he pulled into the quick stop station at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening and saw the black man in military dress uniform pumping gas, every prejudiced instinct he'd cultivated over his 12-year career told him something was wrong. What he didn't know was that the man he was approaching was Lieutenant Colonel James Carter, a 42-year-old decorated Air Force officer with 20 years of service, currently assigned as Special Assistant to the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon, and Reed's own body camera, activated as he exited his patrol car, was recording everything. Reed had been with the County Sheriff's Department for 12 years, working patrol in rural Virginia with 19 formal complaints alleging racial profiling. The call had come in at 6:41 p.m., anonymous 911 call at 6:41 p.m., reporting a black male in dark clothing at Quick Stop gas station, possibly casing the location, acting suspicious. The caller refused to provide their name and hung up. Dispatcher noted the vague description but assigned Reed to check it out, a decision that would later be criticized as insufficient vetting of an obviously biased complaint. That should have been verified before any action. Reed's body camera began recording at 6:44 p.m., the timestamp visible as he drove toward the station. At 6:47 p.m., his camera captured a black man in military uniform at Pump 3, filling a dark blue sedan. Lieutenant Colonel Carter had just finished 14 hours at the Pentagon, strategy briefings with senior defense officials. His Air Force dress blues were unmistakable, silver oak leaf insignia clearly visible, ribbons representing 20 years of service displayed on his chest, including the Bronze Star Medal, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Air Medal. His name tape read, Carter, in clear letters. He was checking his phone when he heard footsteps approaching. He looked up to see a deputy walking directly toward him, hand on duty belt, body camera visible on his chest. "Excuse me, sir," Reed called out, his camera recording his voice. "I need to see some identification." The camera captured Carter's uniform clearly, the insignia, ribbons, name tape, all visible in perfect clarity. Reed's body camera captured Carter reaching into his uniform jacket, pulling out his Department of Defense identification card. "Officer, this is my military ID," Carter said, his voice controlled. "It shows my rank, my assignment at the Pentagon. I stopped for gas on my way home." Reed's camera recorded him examining the ID, but his voice remained skeptical. "This could be fake. How do I know this is legitimate?" Carter's jaw tightened. "Officer Reed, my uniform alone establishes my federal status. I can provide you with the direct number to Joint Base Andrews. They can verify my identity in under 2 minutes. This is entirely unnecessary." At 6:52 p.m., Officer Michelle Torres pulled in, her body camera providing a second angle. Torres had served 4 years in the Army. The moment she saw Carter's dress blues, the oak leaf insignia, the service ribbons, she knew this was a senior military officer doing nothing suspicious. Her camera captured the scene from 40 feet away. She should have intervened immediately, but she remained silent, unwilling to contradict her partner. Reed stepped closer, his camera recording the narrowing gap. "For officer safety, I need you to submit to a search. Place your hands on the vehicle." "Officer, I respectfully refuse," Carter said firmly, both cameras capturing his response. "Under the Fourth Amendment, I have the right to be free from unreasonable searches. You have no probable cause. I'm a federal officer in uniform." I'm not submitting to an unlawful search. The gas station's security system captured everything from 3 overhead cameras. Camera 1 showed both patrol cars and Carter's vehicle. Camera 2 provided a closer overhead view, clearly showing Carter's insignia. Camera 3 captured the profile, recording the growing tension. Other customers stopped to watch, some pulling out phones to record. Reed's hand moved to his service weapon, fingers resting on the grip, captured on both body cameras. "Sir, I'm not going to ask again. Hands on the vehicle, now, or this becomes an arrest situation." Carter's eyes tracked the movement. "Officer, I'm in full military uniform. I've identified myself as a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. I haven't broken any laws. If you arrest me, there will be federal consequences." Reed's body camera recorded his hand gripping Carter's arm. "Hands on the vehicle, now!" Carter took a slow breath, his military discipline overriding every instinct to resist. "I'm complying under protest," he said clearly, both cameras capturing his words. "This is an unlawful arrest of a federal officer." He placed his hands on his sedan, maintaining the rigid posture drilled into him over 20 years of service. Reed pulled Carter's arms behind his back, the body camera recording the metallic click of handcuffs closing around the wrists of a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. Torres's camera moved closer, capturing in devastating detail the Bronze Star Medal on Carter's chest, the oak leaf insignia on his shoulders, the name tape. Everything that screamed federal military officer now restrained like a common criminal. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and failure to provide adequate identification," Reed announced, his voice captured on both body cameras and all 3 gas station security cameras. The station manager, a middle-aged white man named Robert Hayes, emerged from the store, his face registering complete shock as he saw a uniformed military officer in handcuffs. Torres's camera captured Hayes' expression, his hand moving to cover his mouth. "Officer, that man's in military uniform," Hayes said, his voice uncertain. "He's been coming here for months. He's never caused any trouble." Reed ignored him. Carter turned his head, looking directly at Reed's body camera lens. "My name is Lieutenant Colonel James Carter, United States Air Force, service number redacted for security. I am a decorated combat veteran with 20 years of active service. I currently serve as Special Assistant to the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon. I hold a top-secret security clearance. I have committed no crime. Officer Dalton Reed, badge number visible on his uniform, is arresting me without probable cause, without reasonable suspicion, based solely on an anonymous tip and his own bias. This arrest violates federal law. The statement was captured perfectly on 3 body cameras and 3 security cameras, every word preserved with timestamps and metadata." Reed walked Carter to the patrol car, his camera recording Carter's dignified posture despite the handcuffs, despite the humiliation of being arrested in his own uniform at a gas station, while other customers watched in horror. They arrived at the county jail at 7:23 p.m., both body cameras still recording. Reed opened the patrol car door, his camera capturing Carter stepping out, still in full dress uniform, still handcuffed, his bearing still military straight despite 14 hours of meetings and now this degradation. Inside the booking area, Deputy Marcus Johnson stood behind the intake desk. Johnson was a former Marine, 8 years of service before joining the Sheriff's Department. When Reed walked in with Carter, Johnson's face went pale. His eyes tracked from the handcuffs to the uniform, to the rank insignia to the ribbons, and his expression shifted to pure disbelief captured on Reed's body camera. "Reed, why is there a lieutenant colonel in handcuffs?" Johnson's voice was tight, barely controlled. Reed's camera recorded him pushing Carter forward. "Arrested for obstruction and failure to provide ID. Process him." Johnson's hands moved to his keyboard, typing Carter's name. The database search took 8 seconds. When the results populated, Johnson's eyes widened. The body camera captured him reading the screen, his face illuminated by the monitor. "Reed, this man is a decorated combat veteran. Bronze Star, 3 deployments, top secret clearance, current assignment, Special Assistant to the Secretary of Defense. Johnson looked up, his voice rising. The Pentagon. Reed, what probable cause did you have to arrest him? He was acting suspicious, refused to comply with a lawful search, Reed said, his camera recording his own defensive posture. That's a lie, Carter said quietly, both cameras capturing his composed response. I cited the Fourth Amendment and refused an unlawful search. I provided my military identification. I offered to have my identity verified through official channels. Officer Reed chose to arrest me anyway. Johnson looked at the body camera on Reed's chest, then at Torres. Please tell me you recorded this. Everything's on camera, Torres said, her voice barely a whisper, her own camera recording her feet. Carter was allowed one phone call. His hands, finally uncuffed, dialed a number from memory. Pentagon duty officer, this is Lieutenant Colonel Carter, service number redacted. I've been arrested by local law enforcement in Virginia while in uniform. I need immediate legal assistance and notification of my chain of command. The Pentagon duty officer who answered Carter's call was Captain Sarah Chen, a 12-year Air Force veteran working the evening watch. The moment she heard "arrested" while in uniform, she activated emergency protocols established for exactly this scenario. At 7:48 p.m., she notified the Joint Chiefs of Staff duty officer. The following morning at 8:30 a.m., during his daily intelligence briefing, Secretary of Defense Robert Hammond was informed of the incident. He immediately directed the DoD Inspector General to open an investigation. He excused himself immediately, making 3 phone calls in rapid succession. The first was to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, activating their Criminal Investigative Division. The second was to the Department of Defense Inspector General, opening an immediate investigation into the detention of a senior military official. The third was to the FBI Civil Rights Division, requesting federal intervention. At 8:22 p.m., Lieutenant General Patricia Morrison, Carter's direct superior and Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, received the notification. She had commanded Carter in 2 combat deployments, knew his record, knew his character. Her first call was to Joint Base Andrews Commander, Colonel David Price. One of my officers has been arrested in your area while in uniform. I need base legal and security personnel mobilized immediately. Later that day, Pentagon Legislative Liaison contacted the governor's office to formally notify Virginia state officials of the federal investigation. At 8:34 p.m., the county sheriff, Thomas Blackwell, received a call from the Pentagon. The voice on the line was calm but carried unmistakable authority. Sheriff Blackwell, this is General Morrison, United States Air Force. One of my officers, Lieutenant Colonel James Carter, is currently detained in your facility. He was arrested while in full military uniform, returning from classified Pentagon briefings. I need him released immediately. And I need a full explanation of why a uniformed federal officer was detained without notification to federal authorities. Blackwell's hands shook as he pulled up the arrest record. Media inquiries began flooding the sheriff's office by 9 p.m. By late Wednesday morning, cell phone footage from multiple gas station customers had been posted to social media. Within 48 hours, the videos had accumulated over 2 million views. National news networks picked up the story Thursday afternoon after military advocacy groups confirmed Carter's identity and Pentagon position. At 11:34 p.m., 4 hours after his arrest, Carter walked out of the county jail, still wearing his dress uniform, now wrinkled and stained. A Pentagon legal team was already airborne, heading to Georgia. AFOSI agents arrived at the county sheriff's office Thursday morning at 9:15 a.m., led by Special Agent Marcus Webb from the AFOSI Mid-Atlantic Field Office, a former Army Ranger with 15 years of investigative experience. They carried federal authority and 0 patience for jurisdictional games. We need all body camera footage from Officers Reed and Torres, all arrest reports, all dispatch recordings, and all evidence related to Lieutenant Colonel Carter's detention. Now, Sheriff Blackwell, who hadn't slept, handed over everything. Webb's team secured the footage immediately, preserving the metadata, timestamps, and chain of custody. By 8 a.m., they were at the Quick Stop station. Owner Robert Hayes provided complete access to his security system. I've got 3 cameras that recorded everything, Hayes said, pulling up the digital files. I watched it myself last night. That officer had no reason to arrest him. The colonel was just getting gas. The AFOSI team collected 6 cell phone videos from customers who'd witnessed the arrest, each providing different angles of the confrontation. By noon, they had a complete picture from 9 different camera sources. Special Agent Webb pulled Reed's personnel file, his employment history, his training records, and his complaint history. What emerged was damning. 19 civilian complaints over 8 years, every single one alleging racial profiling or excessive force against people of color. Webb's analysts ran the numbers on Reed's traffic stops and field contacts over the past 3 years. The pattern was undeniable. 43 stops of black or Hispanic individuals versus 7 stops of white individuals, despite the county's demographics being majority white. Department internal emails revealed supervisors were aware of Reed's pattern, but had taken no corrective action. Officer Torres was interviewed separately at 2 p.m. in a federal building with her attorney present. Did you recognize Lieutenant Colonel Carter's uniform as authentic military dress? Webb asked. Torres hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I served in the Army. I knew immediately he was a senior officer. Did you believe Officer Reed had probable cause to arrest him? No, Torres whispered. But I didn't stop it. The investigation expanded when Carter's detention as a senior Pentagon official with active top-secret clearance constituted interference with a federal official in performance of official duties, triggering additional federal charges against Reed. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Virginia received the complete investigative package from AFOSI on day 3. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh, a former JAG officer with experience prosecuting civil rights cases, reviewed 9 different camera angles showing the same undeniable truth. Officer Reed had arrested a uniformed lieutenant colonel without probable cause. Walsh called in Dr. Michael Torres, a retired Army colonel and expert on military protocols. In your professional opinion, does Lieutenant Colonel Carter's uniform establish his federal official status? Absolutely, Torres testified before investigators. The dress blue uniform, the rank insignia, the service ribbons, everything visible in these videos confirms he was a senior federal military officer in performance of official duties. Any reasonable law enforcement officer would recognize this. Walsh built her case around Title 18 U.S.C. Section 111. Federal prosecutors presented evidence of multiple felonies. Deprivation of rights under color of law. 18 U.S.C. Section 242. False imprisonment of a federal official. Obstruction of justice. Witness intimidation. Conspiracy. And filing false official statements. Carter's status as a special assistant to the Secretary of Defense meant his detention fell under federal jurisdiction automatically. The body camera audio was analyzed by forensic experts who confirmed Reed never articulated legitimate probable cause, never explained what crime Carter had allegedly committed, never justified the arrest beyond vague claims of suspicious behavior. AFOSI investigators identified 12 previous victims of Reed's racial profiling, all willing to testify about similar unconstitutional stops. The pattern was identical: anonymous tips, aggressive confrontations, demands for identification without reasonable suspicion, arrests for asserting constitutional rights. Officer Torres was offered immunity in exchange for testimony. Her attorney negotiated the deal over 2 days. She'll testify that she recognized the uniform, knew the stop was unlawful, and remained silent out of misplaced loyalty to her partner, the attorney confirmed. Reed's training records showed he'd received specific instruction on respecting federal officials and understanding military rank structures. Department emails revealed Reed had stopped another service member 3 months earlier, and his sergeant had reminded him that military uniforms indicate federal status. Reed knew exactly what he was doing. On day 7, a federal grand jury was convened. Walsh presented her evidence over 6 hours, the body camera footage playing on courtroom monitors, Carter's dignified voice echoing through the room. "I am a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force." The grand jury returned indictments on multiple federal charges. While building the primary case, FBI forensic analysts examined Reed's department-issued cell phone. What they discovered expanded the charges exponentially. Reed had deleted 47 text messages on the night of Carter's arrest, but digital forensics recovered every one. The messages were devastating. At 7:03 p.m., 16 minutes after the arrest, Reed had texted his sergeant, "Arrested the guy from the gas station. Might be military, but he gave me attitude." At 7:41 p.m., after Carter was booked, Reed texted a fellow deputy, "That guy I arrested was some Air Force officer. That guy I arrested was some Air Force officer," kept citing the Fourth Amendment like he's a lawyer. Should have just cooperated instead of making it difficult. The messages proved Reed recognized Carter's military status but proceeded with the arrest anyway, transforming the case from possible mistake to deliberate civil rights violation. Obstruction of justice charges were filed based on the deleted messages. The investigation expanded to Reed's immediate supervisor, Sergeant David Hawkins, who had supervised Reed for 6 years. Email evidence showed Hawkins actively encouraged Reed's aggressive tactics and had protected him from consequences after multiple complaints. "Reed's proactive," Hawkins had written in one email. "He makes stops other deputies won't. That's what we need." Conspiracy charges were added, alleging Hawkins and Reed worked together to violate citizens' constitutional rights. The FBI discovered Reed had contacted gas station owner Robert Hayes 3 days after the arrest, attempting to pressure him not to provide security footage to federal investigators. Hayes had recorded the phone call. "Mr. Hayes, this could get complicated for your business," Reed's voice said on the recording. "It might be easier if those security videos just disappeared." Witness intimidation charges were filed immediately. Reed's arrest report claimed Carter had been verbally aggressive and physically resistant, but 9 camera angles showed Carter remaining calm and compliant throughout. False official statement charges were added. The investigation revealed Reed had twice claimed federal authority during traffic stops, telling motorists he was working with federal agents when he wasn't. The Department of Justice opened a pattern or practice investigation under 34 U.S.C. Section 12601 into whether the entire department had engaged in systematic civil rights violations, the same legal framework used to reform departments in Ferguson, Baltimore, and Minneapolis. Additional charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, were filed against both Reed and Hawkins. The federal trial began in March 2027, 36 months after Carter's arrest. The delay reflected extensive pre-trial proceedings. Reed's multiple motions to dismiss, all denied. Suppression hearings regarding the body camera evidence, denied. And Reed's failed attempt to move the trial out of the Eastern District of Virginia in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Virginia. The courtroom was packed with military officials, civil rights advocates, and national media who recognized this as a defining case about respecting federal authority and constitutional rights. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh opened by playing the body camera footage from both Reed and Torres simultaneously on split screens, then added the 3 gas station security camera angles, 5 perspectives of the same interaction, all showing a uniformed lieutenant colonel being arrested without probable cause. The jury, 12 Virginia citizens of diverse backgrounds, watched in silence as Reed dismissed Carter's military ID as potentially fake, as Carter calmly cited the Fourth Amendment. As Reed's hand moved to his weapon, Lieutenant Colonel Carter testified in full dress uniform, his ribbons gleaming under the courtroom lights. He detailed his 20-year career, 3 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, his current assignment advising the Secretary of Defense on strategic operations. "I've served my country since I was 22 years old," Carter said, his voice steady but emotional. "I've been shot at in Fallujah. I've lost men under my command. I've briefed generals and congressmen. And on that Tuesday evening, I was arrested at a gas station for being black in uniform. That's what this case is about. 12 previous victims of Reed's racial profiling testified, each describing identical encounters: aggressive stops, demands for identification without cause, arrests for asserting rights. The pattern was undeniable. Torres testified under immunity, her voice shaking. I knew Officer Reed had no legal basis to stop Lieutenant Colonel Carter. I knew the arrest was unconstitutional. I should have intervened, and I didn't. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Expert witnesses explained military protocol, federal jurisdiction, and Fourth Amendment law. The defense claimed Reed feared for his safety, but Walsh destroyed that argument with multiple camera angles showing Carter's calm demeanor, his hands visible, his posture non-threatening throughout. Reed's own body camera showed him dismissing obvious military credentials that any reasonable officer would recognize. The jury was shown close-ups of Carter's Bronze Star, his Defense Meritorious Service Medal, his campaign ribbons. Walsh's closing argument was devastating. Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Reed didn't just arrest a citizen. He arrested a federal official in performance of duty, an assault on the United States government itself. The jury deliberated 5 days. The verdict: guilty on all counts. The sentencing phase began 2 weeks later. Federal prosecutors presented evidence of multiple felonies: false imprisonment of a federal official, deprivation of rights under color of law, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, conspiracy, false statements. Each carried significant prison time. Carter delivered his victim impact statement in uniform, standing at attention. I've dedicated my life to defending this nation and the Constitution. On that evening, Officer Reed violated both. He saw my skin color before he saw my service. He saw a threat where there was only a citizen exercising his rights. I serve so that all Americans can live free from government tyranny. Officer Reed embodied that tyranny. U.S. District Judge Catherine Morrison reviewed the federal sentencing guidelines. Officer Reed, Judge Morrison said, you didn't just violate Lieutenant Colonel Carter's constitutional rights. You arrested a senior Pentagon official, undermining public trust in law enforcement and dishonoring those who serve our nation. Your actions after the arrest, deleting evidence, intimidating witnesses, filing false reports, show a pattern of deliberate criminality, not a momentary lapse in judgment. Judge Morrison continued, arresting a uniformed Pentagon official is not simply a civil rights violation. It is an assault on the federal government itself, on our national security apparatus, on the very institutions that protect this nation. Reed was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, multiple counts running consecutively. Sergeant Hawkins received 18 months for conspiracy and obstruction. Torres received 12 months probation for failure to intervene. The civil lawsuit settled for $875,000, one of the largest civil rights settlements in the county's history for a case without physical injury. Following a separate Department of Justice pattern or practice investigation initiated after Reed's conviction, the Sheriff's Department entered into consent decree negotiations in 2028. The decree, finalized in 2029, required comprehensive reforms requiring comprehensive reforms: mandatory bias training, body camera policies, independent oversight of use of force incidents, and quarterly reporting to the Department of Justice. Sheriff Thompson resigned under pressure. 5 deputies were terminated for their roles in covering up previous complaints against Reed. The Department of Defense updated its law enforcement liaison guidance, requiring immediate notification to DoD when any uniformed service member is detained by civilian law enforcement. While not officially named for him, the policy became informally known among military legal officers as Carter's Rule, a reminder that the uniform represents federal authority that must be respected. Carter was promoted to full colonel and continued his Pentagon service. The body camera and security footage became mandatory training material in police academies and military installations nationwide, a stark lesson in constitutional law and respecting federal authority. Reed's case became a landmark example in law enforcement training nationwide, demonstrating the severe federal consequences of racially profiling citizens and violating constitutional rights. The video evidence was so overwhelming, so undeniable, that it left no room for the usual defenses of officer discretion or reasonable suspicion. And in a supreme irony, the body camera Reed activated to document what he thought was legitimate law enforcement instead captured every moment of his federal crimes, preserved in high definition, admissible in court, undeniable evidence that cost him everything. Because the truth, when recorded from multiple angles and proven beyond doubt, reminds us that those who serve the nation deserve our respect, not our suspicion. If you think this situation was bad, wait until you see what happens in the case on the right-hand side.
Welcome to a channel dedicated to the absolute truth. We believe in holding power to account by carefully examining the evidence. Opinions vary, but the records don't lie. Thank you so much for watching today.